I've given my share of speeches over the years to a wide variety of audiences, but I'm truly honored and also a little overwhelmed to be speaking here with you today. As Ken said, I've been a full-time writer and photographer by profession since 1973. I knew when I was 15, back in 1962, that this was a profession I wanted to follow. And I've been truly blessed to be able to do it for pretty much half a century with only a few interruptions. I have traveled throughout much of the world, around 30 countries, I believe, and I've been able to work for or with National Geographic, ESPN Television, the British Broadcasting Company, BBC, Field and Stream Magazine, and many, many other wonderful organizations. Successful wildlife photography, although it sounds pretty glamorous, is not the easiest of professions. And I'm going to be the first to tell you I've never been alone in all that I have done. So what I really want to talk about this morning is a group of guys I affectionately know as Joe and the boys. We've never had a face-to-face conversation, even though I talk to them every day, sometimes more than once, as I'm about to tell you. I believe that I actually saw Joe once, one night, and I will tell you about that. Joe and the boys are my guardian angels, and they've been looking after me for a long time. You may have read some of the many books written about guardian angels because a lot of people have experienced them. Probably you have yourselves. You may not have ever known it. Do they honestly exist? Absolutely. Angels as a group are mentioned nearly 300 times in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. Every mention is not specifically about guardian angels, but enough are to make you realize they are real. We know from the book of Job that angels were created before man. There are different orders of angels, but in Exodus chapter 23, verse 20, we read how an angel of God helped lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Surely that was a guardian angel. We see an angel saving Daniel in the lion's den in the book of Daniel chapter 6, verse 22. Surely that also was what we could describe as a guardian angel. I could go on, but let me quote Psalm 91, verses 11 and 12, just in case you're not sure. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. God has not revealed whether one angel, one specific angel, or several of them are assigned to watch over each person in his lifetime. And they're not named. Actually, only 4 angels, or perhaps 7, depending on who you might read, out of the legions of angels at God's command are named. But you can be assured that divine protection and comfort are available if you exercise faith. Faith is the biggest word in the Bible. It's the biggest word in Christianity, and it is so simple to understand. My own favorite Bible verse is in Matthew chapter 28, verse 19, similar to what we just read in the book of John. These are the last words Jesus speaks to his apostles. And surely I will be with you always to the very end of the age. That's pretty powerful stuff. Jesus does not mention angels here, but the message is clear. He will be there for us when we need him, if we accept him. The presence of his angels reinforces that. They are not just symbolic. They are real, appointed by God to guard, guide, and protect us in times of hardship and danger. Because I have never personally met my guardian angels, I named them Joe and the boys. Because I'm human, just like you all are. And I thought it would help me better relate to them. And it has. I don't worship them or pray to them, but I do talk to them. And as you will see, I thank them a lot. I'll start my story today in Alaska, 52 years ago, where I had gone after my military service to begin following my dream of becoming a wildlife photographer. I'd been an officer in the United States Army, 2.5 years of it spent in the Southeast Asia Pacific Theater. I was tired. I flew up to Anchorage the minute I got out of the service, and on this particular day, a cold, foggy, misting afternoon along a river canyon in Alaska's McKinley Park, now known as Denali, visibility was almost nothing, and I was backpacking to an area known for bighorn sheep. I was miles from anywhere, and all I could barely make out in the mist was a small clump of 6 or 7 little willow trees about 20 feet ahead, to my left, and along the river. To my right, about 20 yards away, the Rocky Canyon wall rose steeply, just like the wall here. I decided to stop at the willows to refill my canteen, but I never did. Just before I reached them, a female grizzly bear and 3 very small cubs, just out of hibernation, dashed out of those willows. Instead of coming for me, which all the rules of grizzly behavior say she should or would have done, she and her cubs ran right in front of me, across the floor of the canyon and partway up the cliff, where they all stopped on a small outcropping and looked down on me. I know without a doubt Joe and the boys were hiking with me that day. There is no way I would have survived had she decided to attack, and it would have taken days before anyone even realized I was missing. A couple of months later, on that same Alaskan trip, I took Joe and the boys fly fishing, and I'm glad I did. I had flown into Katmai, a rugged, pretty much undiscovered region then on the southeast coast, known for grizzly bears. In fact, I'd gone there specifically to film them, catching and feeding on salmon as the fish swam up the river to spawn. The place was managed by a skeleton crew of the National Park Service. Katmai today is one of Alaska's most famous national parks. But I camped there for 3 weeks filming and fishing, almost totally by myself. I'm sure you've seen many pictures of bears standing on a rock with a waterfall and salmon trying to jump the falls and the fish literally catch them in the air. It's a big, famous advertising photograph. Well, that's where I was. The trouble is, Salmon Run was late during the summer of 1973. The bears were there, but their major food supply of the entire year was not. They were starting to get not only hungry, but also a little short-tempered. Early one evening, I was fly fishing a section of the river where I could see trout rising. Behind me was a 100-foot wide swath of chest-high willows leading up to a small knoll where the Park Service cabin was. Park Service people had invited me to join them playing four-man volleyball that night. It was still daylight and stayed daylight till almost midnight. And when I heard the yelling and screaming, I assumed the game was in full swing. I kept on fishing. The next morning, I walked into the park office to tell about the fish I'd caught, and the ranger told me I should have been there last night. Some guy down on the river was fishing, and we could see a big grizzly walking back and forth behind him in the brush 15 feet away. We yelled to get his attention, but he never missed a cast. Bruce, I asked, could you tell me if he was wearing a red plaid shirt and if he was fly fishing? Why, yes, he was. Instantly, we both realized the angler had been me, and I was stunned. With the moving water, I'd never heard nor sensed the presence of that bear from here to there. Had I stopped fishing and walked back through the willows, especially with a large, freshly caught trout, I'd have walked right into that animal. Joe was looking out for me again. Since then, I've filmed quite a few grizzlies in Alaska and Wyoming, where I formerly lived. In September, several years ago, I flew back to Alaska, to Kodiak Island, to photograph grizzlies, and literally spent entire days hunkered down but behind logs, or just standing quietly in the grass while as many as 25 to 30 bears walked, fished, ate, and slept just a few yards away. How do you act in a situation like that? Very quietly, without making any quick moves, and with quite a few conversations with Joe, not only thanking him for the privilege of seeing one of nature's greatest wildlife spectacles, but also asking him to keep the bears occupied with the salmon. You know, you can brush off one or two instances like I've just described as luck or simple coincidence if you want to. But when they happen repeatedly, as they have with me, you have to realize something far greater is taking place. The simplicity of it all, the beauty of it all, is that once you do accept the presence of guardian angels, if you believe in them and have faith they're going to protect you, you'll receive even more help. I guarantee it. God is sending them down to comfort and protect you because of his love for you and your belief in him. In my work for both ESPN and Field and Stream magazine, I've gotten to do a lot of fishing around the country. For ESPN and largely Field and Stream, it was bass fishing. One windy day down on Toledo Bend Reservoir in Texas, my guide and I were forced off the main lake into one of the smaller tributary creeks because of the wind. We fished and I filmed for several hours. Then we decided to call it a day. We packed away the gear and blasted down the creek. The water was about 2 feet low, and I noticed about an acre of waist-high stumps in the outside bend of that creek just ahead. We were skimming along between 40 and 50 miles an hour, not top speed in today's bass boats by any means, but still a good clip as we began our turn by the stumps. Then I felt a jolt. the steering cable had snapped, and we had absolutely no control over the boat. We missed the stumps purely because of the timing, and I know also because Joe was there gently turning that boat for us, even 2 seconds earlier, and we'd have shot straight into them. The steering broke on another fishing trip, this time in Lake Mead out in Nevada, one of the largest lakes in America. At its northeast end lies the mouth of the Grand Canyon. While dozens of miles to the west, the lake is cradled by high plateaus and rock cliffs. It was a gorgeous afternoon, and I was with 3 biologists from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, studying the lake's striped bass fishery. About mid-afternoon, we noticed a storm beginning to form out to the west. It was summer, and such storms often build, then die out without causing any real problems. A little later, we noticed another storm forming on the Grand Canyon end of the lake. Both were miles away, so we continued to catch and tag fish, and I filmed. To make a long story short, we didn't make it back in before the 2 storms converged on top of us. We were in a 21-foot boat. Each time the bow dipped, a wave of water washed completely over us and hit the outboard. That pounding knocked out the steering, but fortunately not the power. We took turns literally holding the engine straight as we slowly plowed into those waves. If the boat had turned broadside, we'd have been swamped in seconds. By now it was dark, and no one knew we were there. This was years before cell phones. I know Joe got wet that night because he was right there with us in the darkness and through some of the roughest inland lake water I've ever been in. That night might have also been the time I realized Joe had a group of angels working with him to keep me straight. Let's change gears for a moment now. In 2005, I spent 5 months on a book assignment filming in Africa, working primarily with lions and leopards. Much of my work was done at night because the cats were most active then. One night, my guide and I watched as 3 lionesses hunted a small group of impala, a type of antelope, but they couldn't get it done. Charge after charge by the cats failed to even come close to bringing down an impala. This took place over a couple of hours and several miles of open savanna. Let me tell you, the African stage is far larger than television can ever portray it. At the far edge of our truck's dim headlights, I saw a bounding antelope jump, but not come down. It was in grass about 2 feet high, and in the darkness, I had trouble marking the exact spot. We eased over so I could hopefully get a photograph or 2 and misjudged the location. When I found the lioness, she was literally right under me, holding the impala, which was still very much alive, down with one paw. I looked right down at the cat at a distance of less than 3 feet, and she was not happy. I could have touched her without even stretching. Suddenly, the impala jumped free, crashed headlong into the side of our truck, then leaped up on the hood. It was scratching and scrambling as hard as it could, but of course its hooves couldn't get any traction on the smooth metal. We didn't have a windshield or doors on the truck. just a platform with 4 wheels, steering wheel, and a motor. I thought the Impala would slide right down into my guide's lap. He was driving and I was seated right behind him, but wedged in by my cameras and the spare tire. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw the cat start to raise up. I swung around with camera in hand, and we made eye-to-eye contact. And the lion literally stopped a split second before leaping on me. Just then, the Impala slid off the opposite side of the truck and started to leap away. The lioness did jump up, but not on me. In 2 bounds, she ran in front of the truck, brought the Impala down again, this time for good. Total time elapsed from when we stopped and I first saw the cat to the time it killed the Impala, probably less than 10 seconds. And I never snapped a single photo of the entire episode. But I promise you, I have thanked Joe many times since for stopping that cat's leap into my lap. Another night, another guide, as well as an armed scout, and I were following a leopard. And when the cat climbed a tree, we simply parked underneath it to wait. 5 minutes later, the leopard came down, and when we tried to restart the truck again to again follow the animal, the battery was dead. The leopard disappeared, and then we realized why. In the distance, we heard a male lion roaring, and each roar was a little closer. We tried to start the truck by pushing it, but couldn't get it moving fast enough on the flat ground to engage it. My guide, who had also forgotten to bring a radio phone or even a flashlight, wanted to spend the night in the truck. Remember, no doors or roof, but both the scout and I objected. I can't even imagine a more dangerous place or thing to do. We had bright moonlight, and I could even pick out a faint trail we needed to follow to reach our camp about 5 miles away. I did not want to sit in an open truck knowing a male lion was on his way. The cat would instantly sense we were helpless, and there's no telling how it would have turned out. So we started walking, and soon the lion dropped in right behind us. I don't know how close he came, but he was roaring on nearly every breath, and I could hear him breathing between the roars. I wanted to pop a flash from my camera just to see, but decided against it. Again, we did not know how he would react. We had another problem, or rather, 2 problems, still ahead of us in the dark. One was a herd of elephants we'd filmed earlier that evening. Somehow we would have to thread our way through them, hoping the lion's presence might keep them from coming after us. After the elephants, we also had hippos to deal with. They come out of the water at night to graze on the grass just like cattle, and they do not like to be disturbed. Most people don't know it, but hippos are considered the most dangerous game in all of Africa, and the largest population of hippos in Africa is right where I was standing. Besides listening to the lion roaring behind us and watching the trail for potential danger ahead, I talked to Joe and the boys steadily. It gave me reassurance, and even today, I still remember feeling completely at ease as we carefully walked along that trail. We ran the dangerous gauntlet without incident, all the while listening to the lion, certainly not 40 feet behind us, closer than from my podium to the door. I was certain that as long as we kept moving and having Joe with me, that we'd be safe. In another half hour, we ran into one of the vehicles from camp out looking for us and immediately backtracked to our own dead truck. We spotted the big lion right away, a huge, full-maned male that I did photograph several times before he slipped back into darkness. Could the big lion have attacked us? Certainly, and without almost any provocation. Lions regularly attack a number of people each year in the area I was in. When I'm filming dangerous wild game, and I promise you, a full-grown male lion staring at you eye to eye at ground level, just a few feet away, can be terrifying. I know the difference between a good photograph and a truly great photograph. It can be as fast as 1,000th of a second, faster than you can blink. I know things can go from good to very bad just as fast. I do push the envelope to try to make better pictures than any other photographer has done, but I do not take what I judge to be unnecessary risks. Would that big lion have attacked? Deep down, I was absolutely certain he would not, and that's why I was ready to walk out on that trail. I knew without a shred of doubt I had Joe and the boys with me that night to provide all the protection I would need. Now, one question I'm sure you might want to ask is that the experiences I've just talked about occurred a number of years ago. Are Joe and the boys still around? Are they still in my life? My answer is absolutely yes. I depend on my guardian angels all the time for practically everything I do. I ask for help and guidance in such mundane tasks as grocery shopping, mowing the yard, trail riding our horses, writing magazine stories. Sometimes they really do fight you. Even giving this testimony to you this morning. I depend on my faith in them more than I ever dreamed a few years ago. And they continue to look after me. As they do, my faith grows stronger. It will for you as well. I'm going to give you one more example of guardian angels. In my most recent book, Riding with Cochise, I spent the majority of my interview time with the great-great-grandson of Cochise and with Harlan Geronimo, the great-grandson of the fierce warrior Geronimo. We spent hours and hours together and became true friends. They told me stories they had never mentioned to anyone else before. It may come as a surprise, it actually did to me, that the Apaches were and still are extremely religious people. But both Cochise and Geronimo prayed to their God several times daily. One afternoon, as the story was related to me, Geronimo and his band were trapped on a mountain by a troop of American cavalry. The approaching soldiers did not know Geronimo was on the mountain, but if the war chief and his men rode off, the cavalry would instantly see them. Geronimo walked away from his men and began to pray for help. A few minutes later, his great-grandson told me, he returned and instructed his band to hide the horses in the gullies behind the rocks, and for the people to simply sit right out in the open by the rocks. This is what they did, and the cavalry rode right by them, often less than 20 feet away, and never saw any of the Apaches. This is a true story, believe me, because Harlan's wife's grandmother was there as a child when it happened. This isn't the only time Geronimo or Cochise experienced guardian angels either. So you see, God and his angels take care of all kinds of people who believe in them, who have faith strong enough to let the angels take control. Trust me, that's all it takes. I told you earlier, I truly believe I've seen Joe. It was in the early fall of 2022, and I was extremely sick with COVID. I'd spent the day repairing fence, but the COVID hit so fast and made me so weak, I wasn't sure I could make it the 50 yards back to our house. Those of you who've had COVID, and I'm sure some of you have, that's the way it is. You're fine 1 minute, the next minute, all you can do is crawl. This COVID did not manifest itself in my lungs, however, the way it has for so many. Rather, it was in my intestines and colon. I was vomiting and having violent cramps and diarrhea. That first night, I honestly was not sure I would live until morning. Sometime during the night, I woke up and I saw a faint glow by the bedroom door. It had the shape of a person, and even in the darkness, the glow seemed to show a long white robe. I'm not making this up, people. I moved to get out of bed, and when I stood up, I heard a very distinct whoosh, whoosh, and the glow disappeared. Was it Joe standing watch just to make sure I did live through the night? I feel absolutely certain it was. Thank you very, very much. Ken, it's all yours. I hope that wasn't part of the recording.
Thank you so much. I don't think I can add anything to that. I'm just going to do what our pastor does at the end of service and do a benediction and let you go. And this is from Numbers 6, verses 22 to 26. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the Israelites. Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace." Amen. Amen. And they'll be getting the food together. We will ask the blessing over the food out there after they have it all ready. So it'll be a few minutes till they get it all together, and then we'll have a blessing over there and eat. So you're dismissed. Hope everybody's had a great morning.